Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 7th of February 2019, and our guest today is a fascinating lady who has a long history studying spirituality and human consciousness. She's a former UFO researcher and MUFON representative to Turkey, who has now become a highly skilled mindfulness teacher and a founder of Conscious LifeWorks and MindfulnessHub. Esen Sekerkarar. Esen Sekerkarar, welcome to the show and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lucas. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've had a very fascinating and quite unusual life, dare we say. As a young woman coming from Turkey, you've spent almost half of your life in many different countries on the international scene, doing conferences and also living all over the world. You've now moved to London, England, as a mindfulness teacher and mindfulness coach. But before we get into an interesting history about your life before as a UFO researcher, let me start by asking you this question. Why do you think mindfulness has become so popular in recent years?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think we desperately need that. We're so much in our heads, and the speed of life is really faster, and we accumulate more things. When we compare it to 100 years ago, maybe the life is faster with all these technological devices, and which is popping up with all these notifications, and so we're really under stress, and we're, I think, looking for a way out. And mindfulness really, I think, presents some very simple way of really tapping into that relaxing and peaceful state. So that I think that's why mindfulness has become really popular in that sense.
Why is it important for people to become more mindful and actually learn the practice of mindfulness?
Well, to start with mindfulness, you really work with your own pain, your own suffering, with the things that are not working for you. And mindfulness is a very self-empowering way, so that you don't have to really look for something outside of you. By just connecting to your body, like to your breath, to different parts of the body, which we call the body scan, which is an attention exercise. So this way you really can do something for yourself. So I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
What is a body scan?
Oh, body scan, yes. Body scan is an attention exercise. It's one of the formal practices of mindfulness, where you can do it sitting on a chair, or you could do it lying down on a yoga mat, or even on your bed if that's comfortable for you. And you close your eyes. Mostly there is you can do it with a guided meditation from an audio file, or if you're in a class setting, the teacher would guide you. So you would just bring your attention to different body parts. Like, for example, say you start from your left foot, and you go all the way up to the ankles, and then the knees and the hips, and yeah. So you just bring your attention to different body parts. So this is kind of really allowing us to be flexible with our attention, because the mind wanders all the time. It's always going to some places. So if we can just take that attention from the mind a little bit and bring it into the body, so that it naturally calms you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a body scan is something that's very important when we talk about mindfulness.
It is. It is one of the formal practices of mindfulness.
I mean, some people, when they hear the name body scan, they maybe think of the airport going through these machines being radiated a little bit. And
who knows? Yeah, sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah, but what you're doing, you are actually scanning yourself with your own attention without anything interfering. Yeah.
Right. Mm. So what mysteries can you actually discover about yourself, or maybe even about the world, when you practice meditation and mindfulness?
I think the mystery starts to dissolve, and I think you start to get more in touch with the reality, because most of the times I think our relationship with the world, our relationship with things, with our, with our work, with our physical pain, whatever is causing problem in our life, can sometimes get in the way because of the relation that we have with these particular things. Say, for example, I'm someone who has got chronic pain. So years ago, I had 2 big accidents which left me with an S-spine, and there is also something going on with my left knee. So I always had chronic pains starting from the age 12.
You say S-spine is like a crooked
yeah,
spine?
Like a whiplash.
A whiplash.
A whiplash,
wow,
yeah. So it's been really difficult for me to not have a day without any pain. But after meeting mindfulness, it was actually on a one-day silent retreat that I had to sit all day on this meditation cushion and really sit with my pain also. With this. And that was something that was really scaring me a lot before doing it. But when I was at that session, sitting down and sitting, even though I had this pain, very intense pain in the body, I decided to be kind with my pain, not to push it back. But I think it was for the first time in my life I ever had such an attitude towards my pain. Like I was really sitting with it, not judging it, almost being kind to it. And from that day, something really happened, which I cannot explain. I mean, it's not a miracle, but it's the change of my relationship with the pain, and therefore I feel like I've got less pain now.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing. I'm sure a lot of people will be very interested in hearing that,
yes.
because a lot of people are using painkillers every single day. Did you also use that beforehand, or are you still using it a lot?
You're right, and I used to use that a lot. I don't remember a day that I didn't take painkillers because it was really intense. And people who have got chronic pain would understand me. Your attention is always there. So it gets very difficult to relate to other people, and your energy level is lower than usual. But with the mindfulness practices, I think it just happened naturally. It wasn't like a decision that, okay, now I practice mindfulness and the pain is going to go away. But it just happened naturally. And there is also a study about that, interestingly, that mindfulness is not a practice only for having you manage with pain or your problems, depression, anxiety in a better way, but it also helps people who suffer from chronic pain. So I was experiencing it firsthand.
How
Yes.
long do you have to practice that before you can feel the change, if any?
For me, it just took that one session, really.
Wow.
It was there because it was that relationship with my pain really altered. Because before then, I realized that I never really sat with my pain.
So the mind can work wonders, really.
It can, definitely it can. but you have to have some values that are attached to it, I think, that are like kindness, for example. Because the opposite side, if the mind is focusing too much on the negative side of the relationship that one would have with the world, then the mind would just be meditating on that all the time. Therefore, you would be in a different state of well-being. But when you flip your attention to something else, which has more value, like kindness, like accepting, not allowing yourself to let go of things, when you give yourself the opportunity to bring your attention to those values, then the mind starts to kind of meditate on these values. Therefore, you have a different experience.
Understanding the power of thought and determination.
Yes.
Like the law of attraction?
We could call that, I think, but not necessarily, but one could call that, of course, why not? But I think here is there is a very conscious choice, which is, I think, a little bit different than the law of attraction, because in the law of attraction, the practice is like, I know from the movie Secret, right? That you do a lot of visualization and you try to feel things in the body, and then you allow things to come to your life. But with mindfulness, it's not about really having a goal about achieving something in your life, but it's about really being in the present moment and just accepting it the way it is. It may not be okay, but it's okay that it's not okay. So that's
right.
Something else.
What kind of accident did you have?
I was at the age of 12. I was hit by a car.
Age of 12?
Yes, I was hit by a car, and the bones on my left knee broke. I had to walk again, and it took me really more than 1 year to walk properly again. I had an operation and I had to walk with the walking sticks for more than a year. Not very easy for me, especially when I was a little kid and I wanted to be active. But I found a way to, chase my friends with the walking sticks. So,
wow.
So I discovered something new.
So already at the age of 12, you had this determination, wanting to get back on your feet again, so to speak.
Very much. And when I was 17, this is kind of funny, a woman fell on me from a suspended floor, but
wow.
left me with a whiplash. But I was lucky because the bones on the spine, they were about to break, but I was really lucky by 2 millimeters so that I wasn't paralyzed. So I feel grateful.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Okay, we have to just say this again. A woman fell on you. How does that happen? From where and how?
Yeah.
I mean, this is incredible, huh?
Yeah, I really don't know. She was just on the suspended balcony. I happened to be under it, and then she fell on me. She must have lost, because I don't really remember much about what happened, because I was out of breath and they had to take me to a hospital. So
you were unconscious?
Not unconscious, but really like struggling with breathing. So that was, I think my attention was not about what happened to me, but my attention was on, oh God, I need some oxygen. Yeah.
So what happened to the woman?
She was fine, because she fell on a soft place, I think, which was on me.
Would she have died had you not taken
her
fall?
I wouldn't like to think about that, but who knows? I mean, things happen like that every day to people.
You also overcame that.
Yes, yes. Well, it came with its challenges, of course, but also its learning, its pain, but also with its gifts, because it teaches you something.
So is mindfulness and meditation the same, or is there a difference?
Well, what we call the mindfulness practice is actually meditation. So, and also like any other meditation practice, you would be focusing your attention on something and really staying there, trying to stay there for a while, and that would be the meditation. And mindfulness is just a different way of meditating. There are other types of meditations like the transcendental meditation and other Buddhist traditions that focus on different kind of meditations. So mindfulness is one of them.
Is it important to meditate no matter how you use it, from what angle you practice it, whether it's a Buddhist way of meditating or another way as you talk about?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if only being grateful for something good in your life, I think, is a form of meditation also. Appreciation life, it is a form of meditation. But of course, having something daily would be essential to really cultivate the attitude of being not only autopilot all the time, but allowing yourself to take a break and come back to the body, therefore to the stillness and peace.
Especially in this day and age, huh?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Is it possible to get to the essence, or maybe finding the key, so to speak, to unravel mysteries about our known universe through meditation? I mean, going on, let's say, a higher level if you use meditation in certain ways, as some people have talked about?
When you're allowing yourself to sit in silence with a very focused attention on the breath, or whatever your object of meditation is, whether it's your body, whether it's your breath, whether it's the sounds around you, or on other traditions they chant some mantras. That is also a way of meditating. This way of allowing yourself to be on the being mode rather than up there in the chaos of the mind and its stories that is telling you, then you, I think, create more space in your life. And when you're in that silent space, you're more open, because you're also more curious about your own experience. And I think when you're in that state, you are more intuitive, you are more connected with yourself, with the nature, with the life around you. And some people say that it makes them more creative, and they become more inspired wherever that inspiration is coming from. But it definitely makes you connect with life, whether it's on this planet or somewhere else, I don't know, but it does make you connect with that source, to speak.
Mindfulness, as we just mentioned, has become very popular, also in the workspace now.
Oh, yes.
Business people are doing mindfulness, lots of different groups are doing mindfulness. So it's not necessarily a spiritual thing anymore, I guess it is a spiritual thing, but please talk about whether spirituality in one way or the other can be used in mindfulness, or are they actually two separate things, or is it the same?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for that question, because I think that's a great question, because mindfulness as we practice it today is totally secular. Even though the source of mindfulness, the background of it, comes from the Buddhist tradition, the way that we practice mindfulness today, which was introduced by John Kabat-Zinn in late 70s, is completely secular. And of course, that can be your choice if you want to practice anything in a secular way or not. That's the choice of the individual. But because it's secular, it can be practiced anywhere. It can be practiced in the workspace. It can be practiced as a spiritual practice. But then we really have to define what is spiritual. I mean, is spirituality something that is not connected with life? That is like something else? We have the work life, we have the family life, we have the spiritual life. I mean, from the mindfulness point of view, there is only one life. There is this continuous, seamless life, and they are all interconnected. So the idea of it is You can, of course, practice mindfulness in the workplace and invite some resilience when you're working under very demanding circumstances, or you could do the same when you are meditating in the nature, so that you are more connected with that nature around you, with life, with that spiritual force, if you like, also. So I don't feel like there is big separations in between them, because I don't like to see life as separate different things. It's just different aspects, but we can still be the same person and bring our authenticity and our kindness to each aspect of our lives. It's possible.
Maybe it will scare people away a little bit if they think mindfulness is a spiritual practice.
Yeah, I totally get your point. Yes, and I understand them, but mindfulness is basically an attention exercise, and where you take the attention out from your mind to the body. Very simple. So what is so spiritual or big about it? Well, if your experience with that gesture of putting your attention, taking your attention out of your mind and putting that to your breath, then that's your individual experience, and nobody can say anything about that, because that's your experience. But as I said, we can't deny that it's part of Buddhism, but what we are doing with mindfulness is we are not practicing Buddhism. There is a science behind it as well. For example, there was some research about how the brain literally changes after practicing mindfulness and other forms of meditation. There is one lady called Sarah Lazar from the Harvard University, and she made an experiment. She experienced something in her life, and then she's a scientist and a neurologist, and she decided that she starts practicing some yoga and mindfulness. And after feeling the effects of it, she decided to scan her own brain to see if this practice is doing anything to her brain, because she could definitely feel that the level of peace and calm increased dramatically in her life. So she was really wondering if this is doing something not on the body, but not on the mind, but also in the brain, which you could measure. And she measured that the frontal lobes, where the feelings of stress and peace on the mind changed dramatically, that there was the frontal lobe where it is associated more with stress and flight and form of stress. Yeah, aggression, whatever you call it. It was calmer. This is from the scientific point of view, right? But they also scanned some Buddhist monks as well, where they could also see how their brain has evolved in a more peaceful way. I mean, they could really locate where you have stress and where you have calm on your brain. I mean, I'm not a scientist, I don't know how they're located, but there are particular places on the brain that is kind of designed for holding certain different emotions and reactions, so that we operate from them. If the stress compartment, let's say, is very heightened, then they can see it on their scans because it's like lighting up. When you bring some calm to it by doing some meditation, then they can also see on their screens that those areas are calming down in the same way.
Speaking of scientists and also what we talked about, mysteries of the universe, the great scientist Nikola Tesla, when you look at his work, in a way, although he was such a brilliant scientist, it was also like he was channeling some kind of universal power. Can you talk about how you view a universal power in alignment with your, let's say, your body and soul?
Well, we're part of it. The planet that we live on is a part of the universe, and we are therefore part of the universe. I don't think there is any separation in that sense. I don't see myself as, you know, as someone coming from a particular country or a religion or a background or whatever. Of course, those are the things that identify us and give us the richness. But those are not only the things that identify us for 100%. We are also a part of something bigger, something, and that is mysterious, isn't it? Yeah, because we don't have all the answers about it, or the answers to it, what this universe is all about, what is this meaning of life, and you know, all those questions. But for sure, we're a part of it, of course.
So what do you think Tesla meant by saying, if you only knew the magnificence of the numbers 3, 6, and 9? Do you know anything about numbers in that way, in that sense?
I really don't know what he means by that. I know that some numbers, there is a, what is it, numerology, where you can, you know, understand the meanings of numbers. But within that context, I really don't understand about what Nikola Tesla means. But I'm sure that he has found something, because they say, you know, this universe, the language of the universe is numbers. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Also, Pythagoras was another mystic philosopher and mathematician. Said the same thing, that the language of the universe is mathematics. So Nikola Tesla must have found kind of a key to solve the mystery about the universe.
Why do you think that Tesla's work and Tesla himself has been sort of almost hidden for such a long time? His amazing discoveries and teachings, talking about time travel, teleportation, but of course also the electric bulb and the Tesla coil. And it's only in recent years, in these, let's say, more about truth seeking, that people are beginning to become more aware of Tesla's amazing work. Why do you think we are not being taught about Tesla in the schools and in history?
Yeah, well, yes, he has been definitely overlooked, but now I think we are understanding him much better, thank God. Well, of course, he was talking about free energy, wasn't he? I mean, he didn't want to make his inventions and turn them into products that he could sell. So probably that was the reason, that's my understanding, that in today's world, when you look around, if you're talking about free energy, wow, that would really change the dynamics of the world that we know around us.
But you can't really take money for free energy, because free energy is free energy.
Absolutely.
So that would change the whole world structure in terms of the oil companies, the oil, coal, electricity, everything, if there is this electricity around the earth, the ether, which is where he said you could actually connect with this energy because there are these frequencies.
Definitely. Then understandably, you're not the popular guy around.
So everything, as Tesla said, is energy, vibration, and frequencies.
Yes.
How can that, in a way, connect with mindfulness? Because in your body, in your mind, everything must be connected with frequencies, energy, and vibration.
We are energetic beings as well. I'm not talking about spirit, but I'm talking about, for example, if there was a fight in one room, sometimes, like before you walk in, you could just feel the energy, like something in the air, we say, right? There was something in the air that I could really feel. Maybe you were not witnessing that fight, and the people have calmed down when you entered the room, but you could still feel some interesting type of energy in the air.
The air is thick
Yeah,
of
the
this.
air is thick.
What happened?
Yeah, what happened? So clearly, we pick up these energies because our bodies also produce energy, electricity. Yeah, we have that in the body as well. So if we have the electricity, it means that it also has a certain frequency. And if we are not separate from the universe, I think it's really important to understand our own frequency level, that are we operating on positive frequency or negative frequency, and how it is affecting our life. Because if everything is interconnected, I think we need to be aware of our own space and what we are transmitting out there as well.
Because people will pick it up naturally.
Yes, and you are going to be living in that zone too. If there is a lot of unnecessary garbage in your own orbit, let's say, then you would like to remove them. Mindfulness is not a solution for this, because it's not a problem solver. But you could benefit from that, just like one could benefit from looking at the sunrise, or swimming in the sea and just relaxing, floating on it. Anything that would help us really decharge these energies in our body and in our mind. So what we do in daily life, we associate ourselves so much about what is going on the surface of our lives, which is the daily life, it's chaos, it's stress, whatever that I'm experiencing as a problem in my life on a daily basis. So that's my surface. So understanding that this is how life is. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's choppy, sometimes it's still, but there is another dimension, a deeper dimension to our beings as well. If we can really see our relationship with ourselves, with life, then it really creates some space, and therefore, yes, one could benefit from mindfulness in that sense. Very
the law of
much
attraction talks a lot about intent, and actually what you want, brain frequencies, but more so heart frequency, the emotional frequency of what you want is what you can get, that's what you can obtain, that's what you can achieve. But also what you don't want, that's also what you send out. That's how they kind of say it, which is happening through these frequencies we're talking about again. And sometimes you attract what you really don't want.
Yes, because wherever your attention, there you are. I don't think, well, I'm not talking about mindfulness now, but I believe universe doesn't understand or life doesn't understand the difference between what you want, what you don't want. But I think it understands the frequency of the energy, which is what you are putting your attention onto. So if you are putting a lot of attention onto what you don't want, guess what happens?
Yeah.
That's what they say, and I think it's true.
Energy flows where attention goes. Huh?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
So how can people become more positive in their, let's say, in their mindset? Another thing that we should include here, why are people so fascinated by the dark? I mean, the occult, things they can't see, or things that are a little bit sensational or dramatic, because in these, let's say, the spiritual practices, they all talk about we must only think about the good, we must only be very calm and be at peace and deny all negative thoughts. But it's something that we see all the time happening. Why do you think there is this fascination with darkness and the mysteries of life?
Well, the mind likes it, because now it's got a bone to chew on for a long time. It's interesting for it, and it gives it the right material to ponder upon. And the mind really likes, thinking about things, losing itself in thoughts and ideas, and therefore it will always look for some excitement, whether it is positive or negative. And mostly if it is negative, the mind will kind of try to stick on to that. That's why it's sometimes very difficult for us to come out of our habits or self-sabotaging attitudes towards ourselves and to others, because there is a lot of energy in it. And when you're meditating so calm, and we're talking about stillness, for the mind it's very boring. It thinks, this is not interesting, I'm just closing the eyes and focusing on the breath. Is that it? Really? So that's the mind speaking. So the mind is not going to like that. It's going, because it's not, there isn't much, energy for the mind in stillness.
People often want to sit on a mountaintop to meditate, or the New Age practice, saying
Yes.
wow, we must only think of the good, we must only think of love, you must not have a negative thought, and everything has to be very, very positive, almost levitating to some other, level of only good, nice, positive consciousness.
Yeah. And I find that approach very stressing. I think it puts a lot of stress on our shoulders, because from the mindfulness point of view also, as I've just talked about, being a human includes all these feelings and ups and downs, and it also means, pain and suffering. It means negative thoughts, sometimes negative thinking or fearing, or depression or anxiety. It's all part of being a human.
So people should embrace that and not deny it, and not
Yes.
be angry at themselves for having these thoughts or fascination.
It's not about denying, it's not about pushing away. It's about saying, okay, I see you, you are here. Acknowledgement that it is a part of you. Because when you acknowledge whatever is giving you a difficult time or an issue, when you acknowledge it, then it's not your opponent anymore. It's a part of you, so that you don't have to fight with it anymore. When you accept that, okay, this is how it is. I may not like it. I may not like this particular thing in my life, but is pushing away really helping, or making my relationship more hostile with myself? Because what I'm experiencing is a part of my life. How can I deny it? Why should I deny it? So meditation for many people is about, as you have just said, sitting on a mountaintop with the closed eyes, with a certain hand gesture, and maybe, getting rid of the thoughts and thinking positively all the time, and having some very spiritual experiences. Well, really not necessarily. Meditation is actually sitting in the midst of the chaos and saying, it's okay. I see you, it's okay. Now I'm going to put my attention on my breath.
Facing it.
Facing it, yes, because mostly whatever we're experiencing teaches us something. There is always a kind of a gift. It takes us time to understand that, especially when we're in that moment of heaviness. But it's also so empowering to accept yourself the way you are, with all your demons or angels, with all your difficulties, depression, anxiety, joy, love, laughter, and disappointment. Yeah, it's all part of being a human. We're not robots.
Mm-hmm. We are being fed really contaminated energy, so to speak, really bad energy from watching television, for example. A lot of people in this world are watching the daily news. and they're seeing a lot of catastrophes, horrible things happening in the world, hunger, starvation, wars, crime, and a lot of fear are being spread by watching the news. What are your thoughts on that? That is certainly not mindfulness. And then we also see a lot of reality shows and lots of things where people are focusing on being, let's say, mean to each other or backstabbing each other and all these things. What are your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, whatever is not supporting the beautiful values of being a human being would just increase more separateness between all of us, and take us into that very three-dimensional world where life is all about objects and things and about this race to be the first for their acquisition. This is what we call success, isn't it? Having more things. We have started to define success as with the number of things that we have.
Ambition and success.
Yes. It's okay. It's okay to have some ambition, of course. But if it is hurting you and if it's hurting others, of course there has to be a limit to it, what is working and what is not working, what is important and what is not important. But of course, in today's world, I haven't had the television for the last 15 minutes, Lucas, so I'm definitely not
for the last 15 years.
So
you have not watched television for 15 years.
I haven't had that.
Wow, that's
yes.
very... Would you recommend everybody not to watch television?
My family.
Oh, you do, yeah.
Yes.
Would you recommend
sometimes.
that people don't watch it?
Yes, because it really gave me a lot of time. I feel like I saved a lot of time in my life so that I could maybe fill that time with things that I really enjoy doing. And so yes, I would of course recommend that to everyone, definitely.
But why do you think they are feeding us? Why do you think the news channels are feeding people all the time with all these horrific things happening in the world? It's very rare that there is something positive. What is happening? Why is the world structured this way, do you think?
Yes, well, the structure also starts from our school systems, doesn't it? And what we are taught at schools is all about problem solving. It's not about connecting with ourselves. It's not about finding out who we are or how to deal with our sadness or depression or whatever it is. But it's more about problem solving. So we grow up in that way, which really praises the mind. So this system around us is very much about praising the mind because it's the world of the three dimension. That's the world of the mind, and the mind understands that, but the mind doesn't understand about things like values, things like silence, things about spirituality, because it's not its expertise.
But education is based on creating, let's say, ambitious workers on the planet, right? For people to work hard for usually a limited amount of money, although some people can really make it big. So it's always about being the best, isn't it? Or being good at what you do and striving for more, which is of course also a very good thing. But the educational system is like based on this more, maybe a cold energy, going into this ambitious mindset, not spiritual, I mean.
Well, we've got religion as well. I mean, we could call that spiritual, maybe. But of course, it's at the end of the day, it's all about how we relate to all these things. We always have the option to turn off the TV. We always have the option to step out of a challenging situation which is not helping us. We do have the options, but I think the problem is we run on the autopilot every day, that we are not even aware that there is a way to connect with ourselves, because we think that the world is all about what I can touch and see. And in a way it is, of course it is, because this is my relationship with the outer world. It has to be through my body, of course, through the sensations of smell, touch, and seeing and hearing, all that, which makes my experience more complete. But there is another dimension to it as well. And we are not in touch with that, unfortunately, because we are too much in our mind.
This is not a choice for children.
Yeah, it's not a choice for children. You're right. That's why maybe the adults would be the role models for the children. I mean, I would really recommend parents to be more mindful about their own attitude at home with their children, about how present they are when they're with their children.
But a lot of parents have ambition on behalf of their children, wanting them to be in one way or the other, which maybe go against their nature.
That's true, and I don't think we can do much about that because it's a choice. But as you said, it is when you're a kid, you haven't have the choice. But when you're an adult, you have the choice. So use that choice and use it wisely.
So people are being programmed from a very early age to think more in one direction.
I think it's a combination of many things. It's also the country that you are born, because it comes with a certain amount of cultural luggage, and the environment that you grow up, your parents, what their world view is, their political direction even. So I think it's a combination of many, many different things.
Speaking of cultural background, of course we have to talk about religion here, because that's also one of the things which is a little bit eye-opening, thinking that you are very spiritual, believing in a higher power, a God, whatever you call that a God, whether you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, you name it. There are different ways of practicing religion, of course.
Sure.
But there's always something that follows. Maybe not in Buddhism so much, but it's always about guilt and a feeling of not being right and judgment. God will not be happy, you will go to hell, and all of these things, which is implemented in children's minds and their whole way of being from a very early age. What does that have to do with spirituality?
Oh, yeah. Well, feeling that you're not sufficient, you're wrong, of course, does something to the psyche of the human beings. And I think the structured religions talk a lot about the sin, and but we really need to maybe look beyond religion, I think, to really understand the core essence of what their message is.
So let's get into your life, because it is so fascinating, and I'm sure very eye-opening to a lot of people, that you were brought up as a Muslim in a Muslim country, in Turkey.
That's right.
And you are, I mean, when one looks at you and know how your life has been with everything you have done, then it's not how we usually perceive or think a Muslim woman can be, how a Muslim woman can live. Would you call yourself a Muslim today? And how was your upbringing in Turkey like that? Because we often see a lot of Muslim women wearing a burqa or a headscarf and being very suppressed often and not very free. Please talk about that for a moment.
Sure. Yes, I was born in a family in Turkey that practices Islam, and 99% of the country, I think, Turkey is Muslims. But I think the way that Islam is practiced has got a lot of cultural notions The way that it's at that time when I was a child, you don't really have to cover your head, because the part that I come from, which is the west coast of Turkey, I think people are a little bit, even though they do practice religion, I think they are more open-minded. They don't really adapt the cultural background of Islam, but only practice what is saying in the book, where actually I think about covering yourself. What I'm not a Quran scholar, but what I understand from some very open-minded scholars, it doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that you should maybe cover yourself, cover your hair, but it talks about covering your jewelry, not maybe showing off too much flesh and too much of your riches, if you have, gold and jewelry and all that stuff. But in the same way, covering your head when you're walking into a mosque is out of respect, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So I think there are a lot of cultural influences in the way that it's practiced today. Any kind of religion has got some cultural influences, I think. I think it's practiced in different ways in different countries. So my family is very modern, and they brought me up as an independent individual. I went to school and college and university. I lived in my own flat, like any European girl would do at that time.
But are you born in the European side of Turkey and the Asian side? There are two sides, which go, like Istanbul is like separated by a European and Asian side. Where do you come from specifically?
Izmir. It is the third largest city of Turkey. But starting from the age 14, we moved to Istanbul. And Istanbul, as you have just mentioned, is in two parts. One part is in Europe and the other part is in Asia. So I lived on both sides. Yes, well, Turkey is a big country, and it has been the home of various different cultures all along the time, and also traditions and also religions. When you look back to its history, it was the home of the Byzantine Empire, the Greek Empire, the Romans, and the Ottoman Empire, of course. So it's really rich. So it's also like a melting pot of various different cultures and traditions. Therefore, today in different parts of Turkey, you can still see some of these traditions are alive. Therefore, the way that Islam is practiced can be different. Some parts may be more conservative, and the other parts, mostly the coastal part on west and south, is more open. They're more secular. They drink alcohol, for example. That's my family. That's the region that I come from. I mean, it's not a hindrance, or that wouldn't stop you from practicing your religion if you wanted to. So.
It's very unusual seeing a woman who was brought up as a Muslim from a Muslim country being this very, very westernized and international, and you talked about not being with jewelry and makeup and all that, but you've been able to present yourself certainly in that way as well. So you've certainly gone in your own direction. Has it been easier for you to live in the Western societies? Because I know you've been living in both Switzerland and in England and the United States and in Denmark.
That's right.
So you lived all over.
I think it's very European in especially in the western part of Turkey. We live a very European life, and I think the world is not so much aware of that. Also, because of what's going on maybe in Turkey, they see it in a more religious context, which I can understand. But Turkey is a really large country, and there are people like me and people who would prefer to cover their heads and express themselves in a maybe more religious way. I'm not like that. I wasn't brought up like that, and I didn't have any difficulties while I was living in Turkey. I didn't, yeah. But of course, I mean, Europe, I didn't feel much difference the way that I express myself when I was living in other European countries, compared to how I was at my home. But of course, I wouldn't also deny that maybe there is a little bit stronger religious theme, especially now in Turkey, but it wasn't really like that when I was a kid, when I was growing up there. It wasn't really like that. But
it has changed.
It has changed very much. I can feel it more intensely now when I'm there.
Is that because the world has separated a little bit, the Western part against the Muslims, what we've seen after 9/11 and other events that has taken place?
Yes, definitely. I think also the terminology changed, I think, because before I remember that when people referred to other people living in other parts of the world, they would call them by their nationality.
Like
for
what?
example, they would say the Turks or the Danish or the Brits, the Americans. But now it's like all of a sudden the Muslims, like very general. It's not like Turks or Syrians or the Arabs, the Egyptians, but it's like the Muslims. It's a big generalization.
And it's all very different, you mean?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely. If you look into that region, you can see a lot of differences in the cultures of these countries. They may be practicing the same religion, but in a very different way. Turkey was the Ottoman Empire, and it was an Islamic state. Starting from 1923, Atatürk ended the Ottoman Empire and built a secular Turkey, a republican Turkey. That's why I think at that time we were also able to, strip off the country from its heavy religious influence, and we were able to found a new Turkey. A new culture, which is more westernized, which is more open and secular. And that was my experience when I grew up.
You also became a businesswoman, right? And actually was really going for it in business. That's also very fascinating. And also, we get to something very fascinating here because you were MUFON's representative to Turkey. You went into ufology and became the spokesperson in Turkey as a UFO researcher. And this is also very exciting for maybe somebody coming from that region that will fascinate people from around the world. You were speaking at UFO conferences and took part in talking about the UFO phenomena. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into that?
Sure. That was back in 1998 with the opening of Turkey's first UFO research center, which is called Sirius UFO Space Sciences Research Center.
When you say Sirius, it's the star constellation, not Sirius.
No. Yes, that's right. So I met the founder and met the people in the board of directors, and then we immediately decided to work together, and my journey started back then when I was really young, actually in my early 20s.
Was it because you saw a UFO yourself, or how did you get into this? How did you become interested in UFOs? What triggered that fascination?
Curiosity and also really being fascinated about it, like really wondering at that time, like, are they real? Does it really exist? what is this center all about? Do they have the answers? And also from nature, I think I like asking questions like, what is my place in the universe? Who am I really? I mean, we all ask these questions to ourselves, don't we? So I really wanted to follow these questions and be open-minded about finding an answer from different angles. And when this center was opened in 1998, that was a huge thing. It was like all over the papers and television because it was Turkey's first such center.
You became known for it there.
Yes, I started to work there, and I was the secondary person of the center. Then we organized several international conferences in Istanbul. Actually, to the first one, there were around 4,000, almost 4,000 people
the first one?
Over 2 days.
Wow.
Yes, so that was really big. But I think most of the people came out of curiosity because it was the first ever in the region. A lot of people came from neighboring countries as well. And we had some very good speakers in the first conference and the following ones.
So do people talk openly about about UFO existence or alien existence in the universe in Turkey?
Well, they do and they don't. It works both. Yeah, it's both. But I have to say that we also made we made a television program called UFO Reality, where we had some guests such as Turkish military pilots speaking at the show and talking about their own experiences with the UFOs. Now,
so the Turkish military people had seen UFOs?
Yes, they have.
How can you just talk a little bit about what their experiences were? Because this comes from a more official perspective, not just an ordinary person seeing them in the field.
Right. But I also have to say that they would talk about this after their retirements in front of the camera, not that when they were still working on duty. They wouldn't really talk about that, but they would talk about after their retirement. So, for example, some of the pilots literally had a dogfight with a UFO, with something that they can't really correspond to anything conventional. And they spoke about it openly in the shows and to some of the journalists also. And like, for example, also in 2001, well, this is an interesting case. We received a document from the governor of a city in Turkey. And when we opened the envelope, there was a file with some drawings, like interesting drawings, and the whole thing was signed by the governor of the city himself. So which was like the Turkey's first official UFO file. What happened was that there were 7, if I'm not wrong, 7 gendarmerie who were on patrol duty with 3 other military people in the region of Adıyaman, which is the name of the city in Turkey, in the eastern part of the country. And they were on their patrol duty at night. 2 separate groups, but they were all the time in contact with each other on their radios. So one of them saw a strange thing in the sky, and it was very close. It was a round object, and they could clearly see that the top looked like a dome, and it was rotating to a certain direction.
Like a flying saucer.
Absolutely, that's the classical shape. Whereas the bottom part of it was rotating into the opposite direction than the upper part. And from what they say is that they could even see the what we call windows and some shadows in it, which is very, very interesting. And they saw it landing on a hilltop and shutting its lights, and then some other objects came out of this big saucer, flew around.
Objects came out from the source, like orbs?
Like orbs, yeah. They describe it as lights. That's their own terminology in their own testimony.
What color?
Red.
Red.
Red color. And the lights just flew around a little bit. And these two groups, I mean, there were two groups, and they were able to observe the whole thing, not only with their naked eye, but also with their night binoculars, because they are military people. They had their night binoculars with them. So they were really able to see what was going on.
Do you think that they actually filmed it as well? And you haven't been allowed to see it? Or nobody has?
Who knows? Possible, I would say.
That would really reveal it, wouldn't it?
That would really reveal it. But we were not notified anything about that at all.
Could it be a military psyop meaning a psychological operation, like the government actually wants to implement the idea of UFOs in a small way within the general population, that it is real?
It might exist on some other part of the world, but this is not something typical that we encountered in Turkey ever. So I wouldn't really say that this was a part of the military cover-up or anything related with that. Who knows? But I don't think so. Why? Because when these two group of military people were making this sighting, and that was around 2:30 in the morning, because this is a matter of national security, because you see something unidentified landing on your land, on your territory, without any identification. So what you do, they immediately called their superiors at the headquarters, at the city headquarters. And then those superiors called the governor of the city. And he came to the headquarters. And what he did was, he took these 10 men into 10 separate rooms, and he asked them to write down a testimony with their own handwriting and make a sketch of what they saw. So everybody who made the sighting were in these rooms writing their testimonies with their own handwriting, and then the governor of the city made copies of these original documents and made a file explaining the incident and asking, this might be of your interest, so maybe you would like to look into this, and sent one file to the UFO Research Center in Turkey, where I was there at the time, and another copy to the Ministry of Interior Affairs, and another copy to the Technical Studies Association of Turkey. So he made these 3 files. When we got that, we knew that, oh my God, this is Turkey's first official UFO sighting file ever. And we tried to connect with the Ministry of the Interior Affairs and also with the governor of the city, but they didn't come out on any kind of programs on television, or did they want to make any further explanations of what was happening there. So they refused to be in touch, also the governor of the city, afterwards. So
nobody got to film an interview with them or talk with them officially?
Unfortunately not.
But you've seen the files?
Yes, I've seen the files, definitely. I've seen the sketches, this drawing of this saucer, and they're all identical when you read them.
Because everybody did that individually?
Yes, that's true, yeah.
So there are many other cases also you were made aware of when you were in this research group.
For example, this might interest you. I think you would find that interesting, because it also tells something about how religion views the existence of extraterrestrials, which is related to a case that was happening in 2001 in Turkey. And at that time, we were receiving a lot of calls to the center, people reporting UFOs and strange lights in the skies.
So both cases were happening in 2001?
Yes, that's right.
Around what time?
Oh, no, over the year, over the whole year. They were not synchronized. They were not happening at the same time. We literally had a UFO flap, if you like, in Turkey. A lot of UFOs were seen all over Turkey. Even the police were filming them on their cameras. And a lot of these footage were broadcast on TV channels. Some of the shows on TV were hosting people who were filming these strange lights in the sky. So it really became something huge, because it wasn't the only police, it was people, it was civilians, pilots, and credible witnesses. Not only people on the street, but credible witnesses who were observing these things and recording them on their cameras. Therefore, it really became big. So people, the whole nation, kind of started to question, what is it all about? What are these UFOs? Is there an extraterrestrial life in the universe? Are we alone? So this really became a huge topic. And in the end, the Ministry of the Religious Affairs made a public release. And he said, yes, there are extraterrestrials. Humans are not the only creatures that God created, that Allah created, but God also created other dimensions where other lives also exist in that dimensions. So that was kind of an official claim, yes.
That must be very unique for Turkey. You don't hear about that in the United States, in Europe, or in England in that way, do we?
That's true, yeah, it was very unique. In Belgium, I think there was this case in a very small town, something similar to Phoenix Lights in the United States. There was this triangular-shaped UFO that was seen at night, which was flying at a very low altitude, and it was also captured on the military radar. And the general, with his uniform, made a press release the next day. I can't really remember his name right now. I want to say General de Broglie, but I might not be pronouncing it correctly. He made a press release where he showed the radar, the UFO on the radar, to the press. So that was one of the very official, unique release, yeah.
So you went all over the world and you spoke a lot, especially in America, right? And also around Europe, of course, and England, on these international UFO conferences. What was that like, talking about that? Because you landed yourself a place on a list of one of the most prominent UFO speakers at that time, didn't you?
Yes, it was received very well. People were very much interested, also for the reasons, because, a woman from Turkey with a Muslim woman, and I think that was really interesting. They wanted to hear, and the cases that I presented was really interesting, something they don't really hear from that part of the globe, right? So, because in the UFO field you get to hear more about the cases that happen in the United States and some part of Europe, but not particularly coming from the other part of the world, like Turkey, for example. So,
exactly.
Yeah, so that was received very well. Yeah.
So you met a lot and you worked with a lot of the most prominent and fascinating researchers in that field, and a lot of them also talk about different extraterrestrial species and aliens. Can you mention some of that? I'm sure the viewers will be very interested in knowing what you researched at that time and what people told you they had seen. Can you talk about some of those different alien types that people have either seen or have researched?
In Turkey or?
All over, I would say.
Or all over. Well, yes. What I hear is they talk about, this classical greys with the pear head and big almond eyes with a very small mouth. So I think that's the most common species that people encounter.
They call them the biological robots, huh?
Yes, that's what they call. Yeah, people say that they don't really get a lot of emotional feedback from them, so it feels as if they're a little bit like robotic beings or something. So I really don't know, but this is what people claim. Also, like very tall Nordic-looking extraterrestrials.
When you say Nordic-looking, which we hear about a lot, can you
Sure.
explain what they look like?
Yes, very tall, muscular, well-built, and blonde, fair skin, and blue eyes. Very humanoid, yeah, but taller than we are normally. They also talk about reptilians and the praying mantis type of...
Like the insectoids,
yes,
they also call
absolutely,
them.
yeah, that looks like an insect.
And they're supposed to be superior kind of beings in that realm, or like the reptilians, which is of course always mentioned as being the very scary, dominant, evil creatures.
Yes, but I also heard some people who have had some experiences with these type of beings who had some really elevated feelings of love in their encounters with them.
Could that be a deception or projection from them?
It could be anything, really. I mean, for me, it's very difficult to say this is it and this is that, categorizing and putting a label on it like, yes, this is how it is, when it is about these matters, because yeah, it's a bit tricky, I think, to really understand what is going on. Because it's very subjective at the same way, because we are learning about these things from the experiencers. So we don't really have anything to measure that or, understand that. So we're actually listening to somebody else's experience, which we should, absolutely. To find out the truth, we must look in every possible direction.
And look at many different cases, I suppose.
Definitely.
So that if just one person is claiming to have seen these entities or having experiences with these beings,
Definitely.
but if you hear it from many, many different angles, people that don't even know each other, then maybe that is when you start to think, there may be something to it.
Definitely. There are so many similarities. But I think it is good for that sense to look into the very early experiencers' cases in order to get a bigger picture of what's going on. Why? Because with the internet and with social media, we're all connected to each other, and accessing through some information is very easy. So also replicating that would be also very easy, and therefore we would have more confusion maybe really to understand the authenticity of the experience.
So we should always remain skeptical when we hear something.
Definitely. I like that.
Why do you think it's so controversial? I mean, it's of course kept hidden. It's still a secret, even though people are talking about it. It's a fascinating thing, and a lot of people are calling ufologists for conspiracy theorists and whatnot. But why is it so controversial to actually say, I am interested in this subject. I have been a researcher in this field? Because what you have done is to really be very close to, let's say, an official statement. You've presented some official statements here from the Turkish government officials. But please talk about why it is still so controversial to talk about it.
Well, first of all, it concerns the national security. Why? Because when the states accept that there are extraterrestrials and they're able to travel long distances with a type of energy that we don't know, in certain crowds which we don't know how they operate, with so many different species in it, which we don't know anything about their orientation or their intention. And they come and invade your aerial space, land on your land. And so this is like saying, you know what, we don't know anything about that, and they can just, come and visit us as much as they like, whenever they like, but go home and sleep well. No official is going to do that, because they would be taking the power away from themselves by saying that to people, announcing that to people. So it is a matter of national security, so we have to be aware of that as well.
But many researchers, also in the UFO field, have talked about that the governments around the world, high, top level, not just the ordinary politicians, but top level, on a secret military level, have talked about that the government on that level is aware of the alien presence on planet Earth and ET existence, and are actually working with extraterrestrial groups in order to implement a new world order strategy on the world. I guess you've heard people talk about that also in your work at these conferences and elsewhere.
Yes, I've heard about that oftentimes. I believe that the announcement of the extraterrestrial existence has got so many aspects that would really change the game for us, for everyone. Like, for example, you talked about Nikola Tesla at the beginning of our interview. We talked about the free energy. So one level would be how these saucers operate. They're not using fuel, apparently. So what are they using? Maybe they are using the free energy. So that's one thing. So it's not only about, there is somebody up there and it's all about national security, or we're working with them, but it's also about how the understanding of their existence would really change various different aspects of the life here, the system here, which is the technology. On the other hand, it would be religion. Like, okay, do they believe in God? Do they follow a certain religion? Those may be the questions that people might be asking themselves. So we have to also dig into that as well. So do we really want to do that? Do we really want to go into those things? So they would
rather keep people in the dark on these matters?
Yes, if they can. I think so. And also other philosophical questions may arise. Like, okay, if there are extraterrestrials in the universe, then what am I doing here? Am I this nationality? Am I defined only by my nationality, by my background, by my religion, by the work that I do, by my education, or what am I part of? And this can be a very big question, which could really shake up one's world. And think about nations having that shake up.
Who identify in one way or the other, being this or being that.
Yes. And I think there is also this fear element as well.
Which is used very successfully.
It is.
Not only through the media, but certainly through politics. And what people talk about the New World Order, which is something all leaders have actually talked about publicly. They have talked about implementing the New World Order. If these government officials on a high elite level are working with these extraterrestrial groups in order to form this one world government, then that is certainly something they probably wouldn't want to share with the public in that way, in that sense.
That would be wise not to do that for them.
Challenging everything we know if we understand that there may be extraterrestrial life or interdimensional life.
Yes.
Then we would also have to talk about time and space. What is time and space? And we can, not just from a UFO point of view, alien point of view, but from a human and maybe understanding the universe even more. Time and space. We are in this three-dimensional existence here on Earth, in this five-sense reality. Do you think time is linear?
Time, the experience of time, changes according to who is interacting with it. Like, for example, in the daily life, every day, it feels very linear because I've got my past memories, so I feel like, okay, there is a past. But is it really there, or is it only because I refer to it as a time frame backwards, from where I am? Only because it is over and I can remember it. And what I call future is, is something that is not lived yet, so that it must be ahead of me. It shouldn't be somewhere behind me, which I call the past. So this looks like a concept to me, not like a real measurement, but like a concept, because, like, for example, in the dream state, the time is altered. Do we live time linearly? But we're still living, and we're still breathing, and there's still an experience.
But we have memories of past experiences all our life. We remember everything, or at least most of the things we did in our lives.
Yes, but you're always in the present moment. You're always alive in the present moment. I mean, you can be thinking about past now, and we can talk about future, but we're always in the present moment, actually. There's only one moment.
So how about déjà vu? What do you think that is? When people experience thinking that, wow, I've experienced this before. I've been here before. I've had this moment before.
Yes, I've had that many times too, and I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but it must be something about the time.
Do you think that we are time slaves on this planet because we're always running towards something, and we are always a little bit late, and we have to do things, and we have to get up in the morning, go to bed, and doing lots of things during the day?
Oh yeah, planning, scheduling, and we have to watch, we have to go, we have to be on time. Yeah, definitely, of course, because that's what we understand about time, and the experience is linear, but it doesn't mean that the time is linear. In quantum physics, for example, time and space, they have found out that you can exist in two places at the same time because they believe there is no distance. And from our perspective, these objects would look like two separate objects, but in the quantum reality, it's only one object in separate different places, but it's still the same object. Nothing is changed. So we can't really comprehend that with our mind, but how can there be only one thing if it's in two separate places?
Are we talking about a parallel universe or a multiverse with many parallel, maybe an infinite number of parallel realities?
I think we are. That sounds like it to me, especially understanding a little bit about the quantum physics. definitely directs me to that understanding that we are indeed talking about like infinite dimensions.
So if we exist in other dimensions, in other realities right now, maybe an infinite number, if we talk about a soul being which is separate from mind and body, how does that connect to, let's say, a higher source, an infinite number of you and I?
Yes.
In different parallel realities.
That's right. And I think some of the spiritual approaches really try to define that. And from the non-dual approach,
non-duality?
Non-duality. The consciousness resides in a non-dual realm. Therefore, it's all about oneness. There is no separation. However, from this dimension where we are right now, it's experienced as you, me, and other people around us, because we have these identities that makes us think that we're different. The shape, color, height, and all those details are different. So we tend to believe that we are separate. But from another perspective, it's like, for example, let's say, it's like having this body, for example. So like the body is one, right? But I've got separate aspects of it, like I've got fingers and toes and other cells, different cells. But I can't say that, okay, this is my left toe, my left finger is not me, and but the rest of it is me. So we are in a sense separate, but we are whole. We have our own individuality, but actually consciousness-wise, we don't have that separate individuality because it's all one, like the body. Does that make sense?
So it all connects to the same source?
The same source. Like, as I said, the source might have different aspects to it, like a body having different aspects to it, like different cells. But the body is a combination of them all. It's one, it's unseparable.
So do you think it's consciousness beyond this three-dimensional plane?
I think so. So maybe we are like these little cells in this body, in a bigger body maybe, which we call the oneness, but having a monologue with each other, which is kind of a paradoxical thing to say, though.
Well, in that realm, you really have to be able to multitask, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
But really, it's really difficult to get a very fixed definition of these things because for the mind, it's really difficult to comprehend. It's a wonderful human ability, being able to ask questions.
Why do you think so many people on a more general level, at least a lot of people, are ridiculing talking about these major topics, not just UFOs and extraterrestrial life, but also if we are in a multiverse or a parallel universe? Why do you think they are mocking that in a way?
Well, we always tend to deny what we cannot comprehend. That's a very typical human reaction, denying it. And also some part of that denial might be including a certain level of fear, maybe, because the unknown and dwelling in such questions where you can't get very concrete answers to might be a scary place to dive into for some people. And of course, on another level, we really cannot relate to what we cannot hold in our hands and touch and have a direct experience. And I can understand that to some level, yeah, but of course, staying open-minded really helps us discover really who we are. But I also believe that in order to function in this life, we have to maybe be aware a little bit more that, yes, I am here now and this is my experience, and maybe focusing on here and now in this present moment might be a little bit more useful for us sometimes to really operate and function in the best way possible, because we're here for a reason and something is going on in our life. So I believe the best focus would be really giving attention to that and being maybe more curious about what is happening in our own space, so that after that comprehension, starting with ourselves, maybe we can open up to bigger questions, therefore bigger answers.
You talked before about dreams and how we can also maybe expand our consciousness and becoming aware of different other aspects when we're dreaming. Talk about the concept of lucid dreaming. A lot of people have talked about that, not just researchers in the spiritual field, but what can you explain what lucid dreaming is?
Lucid dreaming is about being aware that you're dreaming, because most of the time when we're in the dream state, we're not really aware of it. But when we wake up, we have the memory of having dreamt about something. But lucid dreaming is about knowing that you're dreaming and you're awake in the dream, so to speak.
Sometimes when people talk about these experiences, this happens to, I guess, all of us at one point or the other, or continually. People say that they have been in rooms, walking through places they've never even been to, with a scenery that they have never seen in their actual real awake lives, if we can even call it awake being here. But how do you think it's something that these scenarios that people are talking about, it's something they create within their minds, or do you think that it's actually maybe tapping into another reality?
In some of the Eastern traditions, mindful dreaming, or like aware conscious dreaming, is also part of the practice. So yes, dreams are taken very seriously, and it is considered as expanding your attention and your awareness to tap into other realms that are already accessible, but not in this state of three-dimensional, but in the state of dreaming. So the access would be into those realms, would be us dreaming, so that we can tap into those states more easily. That's what I know from the lucid dreaming practices.
So lucid dreaming is the same as mindful dreaming?
Well, you could call it that, but it's not a part of the mindfulness practice that we do. Yeah, it's not a part of it. But you could call it a mindful dreaming, because being mindful about something is about having your attention there and knowing that you have your attention there.
A lot of people don't remember their dreams, but then you suddenly have these, if they are lucid dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is some certain way of practicing this. Some, I think, recommend having some dream journals, or waking up at a certain time of the night, staying awake and meditating, and then going back to sleep. So yeah, there is a practice about how to be aware that you're dreaming. So one could, practice that, to be more aware, more conscious when they are dreaming.
How is mindfulness connected to Buddhism?
Mindfulness is a part of Buddhism. It's about being aware that you're aware. So it's mostly about how do you do that. So you mostly observe yourself. It's about being in the observer mode of whatever is arising in the body, as sensations or as emotions, and also observing your thoughts and not identifying with them. Saying that, okay, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings, I have these sensations. They're a part of me, but they are not me. So it's about stepping out of the story that the mind keeps telling us, or not getting caught in the way that you feel. For example, if you're angry, one of the mindful way of relating to your anger would be saying, I feel anger. Not saying that I am angry, not that identification, but this disidentification and observing that, oh, okay, I feel anger in my chest area, for example. And you try to locate that in your body so that you can be more disidentified with all these thoughts and the feelings and the sensations, because we are larger than that, because they always change. I mean, we can't be something that is always changing.
Why did you leave the UFO scene and are no longer part of that? Yeah. And of course, you are a very talented, very skilled mindfulness teacher. I've been on a couple of your courses, and it's so I know from personal experience that you are really amazing when you teach people. But why don't you talk about the UFO aspect anymore?
Because I really felt like at the time when I stepped out of the UFO field that I need to work with myself. It felt more appropriate. It didn't make me feel that this is anything less important, but I had that, I wasn't really connecting with myself, with my own issues, looking into that inner space instead of looking into that outer space. I felt like I've got some homework to do with myself, with my life, because I'm here, and you know, we all have our issues, and we all have our reactions, our sadness, whatever is going on in our life. I felt like they needed to be given more attention. So I really wanted to understand more about myself and go a little bit inwards and go into that silent space.
So now you've created something called MindfulnessHub. Please explain what that is, MindfulnessHub.
Yeah, MindfulnessHub offers some 8-week MBSR courses, one-day intensive courses, and also some individual one-on-one training about mindfulness. Also, we offer some retreats and talks and mindfulness in schools, in the workplace. So we offer some training for stress management.
So you also go out in the workplace, you also go, let's say, into the field and talk about, it's not just people coming to you and attending your classes, you go everywhere with it, or how do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, for example, there are some corporate events and they want their employees to hear something about mindfulness. So I give some introduction there, for example. Or if a certain workplace wants to have some mindfulness training, I go there too, and sometimes people come to me and to my courses. So,
in your teachings, you talk a lot about getting rid of the ego. The ego. How simple, or rather complicated, is that for people in general?
Well, we don't get rid of anything to start with. It's not about getting rid of, but it's about becoming an ally with it. Yeah, because mostly we can be in our own way. Like, for example, the ego says, I want this because it's good for me, or I don't want this. I don't want this experience. I want this away from my life. So not really taking that very seriously is the mindful way of awareness.
We always hear the term, your body is a temple. How important is a healthy way of living when you practice mindfulness? Will it help, or doesn't it matter?
Well, there are no musts or mustn'ts, but of course it helps if one has a more refined diet. I mean, it certainly does help me. That's what I know, and I can really feel the effect, which I'm not having very refined food. I can also feel that, how it affects me.
So you live a healthy lifestyle in general?
In general, but it's sometimes, you know, I'm having a bite of that cake and that chocolate, or, you know, a little bit of indulgence, allowing myself to do that in a modest way. But if it's not helping me, I can really feel it more and more over the time, what is good for my body and what is not good for my body. I think it really comes naturally. So it's not really necessary that one really forces him or herself into a certain type of diet. I mean, just if it's okay for you, just eat whatever you like, really. I don't think you have to be like a vegan or vegetarian, which is like the understanding. I think we can eat what we like to, but if the body is reacting to it, doesn't want it, if it's coming from an habitual process of eating certain things, then, you know, just become aware that it's something habitual. So try to find out what is really helping you. And yes, healthy diet would definitely help. But there aren't really any rules about how to be mindful. You just have a body and breathe into it and connect with it. So it's really not about pushing anything. It's about really embracing it, acknowledging that it's there, and then making a mindful decision about, okay, maybe I don't want it in my life. Now, this is different, you see? When I say, oh, I don't want this, so I'm going to push it away, this is a different kind of approach. But when I say, okay, this is a part of my life, I can see it, I acknowledge it, but it's not working me, so I'll take it out of my life. Now, there is more awareness in that approach. There is more acknowledgement, and it's not a striving approach. It's gentle, and I think it makes more sense also.
Attention when you do mindfulness, and the power of visualization. How do you use that in your practice and in your teachings?
Most of the mindfulness exercises focus on the breath, on different parts of the body, focusing your attention on different parts of the body, or the sounds around you. And it's also about making some mindful movements, like maybe walking slowly in a more aware way, or moving, like doing some mindful movements which look like yoga postures in a very attentive and aware way. Visualization is, we can use that. We could, in some meditations, we talk about, for example, I gave the lake analogy, like feeling yourself like the lake, or there's also what we call the mountain meditation, you know, sitting and breathing like a mountain. So we use all those analogies in mindfulness practice, but we also use our senses in a more heightened way. Like, for example, paying attention as if you're seeing something for the first time, as if you're doing it for the first time. Like, for example, when we wake up in the morning, we're so much on the autopilot, we go to the bathroom and we wash our faces, but we kind of do that on the autopilot, that there isn't almost a lot of thinking about it. It's like the body knows what to do, so you're just following your body, not really thinking about it, like you know, in the same way over and over again. So we are not really present when we are doing it. But mindfulness is like, okay, let's slowing down, maybe being aware of yourself when you're reaching out for the tap, opening the tap and hearing the water flow, and putting your hands under the water, maybe playing with them a little bit, feeling the change of the temperature on your fingers, on your skin. You know, all these little details that are actually present there, but we never actually pay attention into at all. So this is called the beginner's mind, like as if it's happening for the first time, really being open to that experience. And when we do that, something really beautiful happens, we start to find this joy in the ordinariness of life. Because mostly we think of joy as, with the capital J, something really big, something really fascinating, overwhelming, like big. But actually the joy is really there in the ordinary things if we are paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. There are many organizations also in London and in England where they offer mindfulness for, for school students and also to workplace, to police departments even. Yeah. So there is a very strong and well understanding of it, which is great to see.
And you're the founder of MindfulnessHub. What is if people want to contact you, how do they do that? What is your website?
Yes, that's www.mindfulnesshub.co.uk, and they can find my email address there and just send me an email.
What do you think happens to us when we die?
I think we wake up in the real world. I think we wake up in, what I mean by that is, I think we wake up into who we really are, which is not this body, which is something greater than this body. What the body contains, I think, is the realm that we find after death.
A soul, consciousness?
I think so. A soul consciousness, or just being in this oneness where the omnipresent consciousness is. So maybe going back to the source, going back to who we really are, where we come from, whatever it is, whether it's the soul, whether it's the source, whether it is the oneness or the Great Spirit, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's waking up to our true selves.
A lot of people all over the world talk about these near-death experiences, experiencing a white light, seeing old relatives who died before them, and you talk about going to source. What do you experience? What do you think is happening when we die?
Yeah, I hear that in some meditation practices, especially in the Eastern practices, they talk a lot about darkness, actually, not the light, but the darkness. That the source, there's this silence, it's a dark place, but meaning that it's not negative. When we say dark, we always associate it with something negative. But not in this context. It's defined as this universal mind, or this universal consciousness, is a place of stillness, of darkness.
So when people talk about going into a tunnel of light, into this white light frequency called heaven, put whatever term you want on it, and seeing all these beings, they often say...
I don't know, but I feel like what we're experiencing after death would probably match our consciousness frequency, if you like. Because isn't it the same way when we're here in this body? Like, what I believe in, what I create for myself is also the experiences that I have in this body, in this experience, yeah? And so I think it would be very similar when I check out of the body. So that's the experience that I have after death would possibly match my frequency or my consciousness level.
So what about reincarnation? I mean, most people talk about being reincarnated and going back to Earth again and again and again. Is that some people are now talking about it being a soul trap, a reincarnation, soul harvesting factory up there in this white light frequency?
Could be, it's possible, but I think everything has a purpose. I don't think we really need to be afraid of it, but the invitation here is to be more aware of ourselves, to be really more aware of our own consciousness. I mean, if we are afraid of something up there, then we should maybe start working on which part of me is afraid of when I'm here on this dimension. So if I have the chance to work with that fear when I am on this level, then I don't think that I would have anything to fear about that matter when I'm up there after death.
So you can take charge of your own consciousness.
I think so.
When you leave the body, when the soul leaves the body.
But I think this life should be in a way a dedication to that, a practice to that. So that when I'm out of this body, if I'm able to, before checking out of the body, if I'm able to create a more openness in my consciousness, then I'm able to carry that consciousness when I die, so that I would have the opportunity to match it with the next experience that is waiting for me.
Maybe mindfulness can actually help
Maybe.
in that preparation.
Maybe, but it's always the intention. Intention.
Would you do me a favor? Would you ring the mindfulness bell?
Of course, of course. So maybe we could also do it in a way that when we take a deep breath and checking into the body and maybe feeling gratitude that we are here, that we're alive. And as John Kabat-Zinn says, if you're alive and breathing, there is more right within you than there is wrong. Yeah, so.
In a world of confusion, of darkness and light, yin and yang, and everything beyond that, you, Esen Sekerkarar, is certainly a light.
Oh.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I need to give you a hug. What a beautiful, oh, you're so sweet. You're beautiful.
So are you.
Oh.